guys, welcome back to the channel. Okay guys, I got the harness figured out here. Get that shoved in there, which doesn't look like it's gonna fit. Welcome back to part 55 of getting the Coronet back on the road. Just kidding. Let's jump right into this video. I've been working on the wiring for this car. I have some of it torn apart here. This is a basket full of wires I've taken out of the factory harness. This is stuff like the horn, the headlight circuit, the cruise control, a bunch of stuff, AC system that I will not be needing. So that's all stuff I've cut out of the factory harness. This is what I have left of the engine harness. So these are all labeled. I've figured out where all of these have gone. We got grounds, we got oil pressure sensors, ignition sources, battery sources, all that stuff. So this actually runs, kind of tied it together with electrical tape. I'm going to take this over and set it down on the engine, half clip everything in where it's supposed to go so I can reroute the wires where I want them, tape this whole harness back up, and I'm going to solder everything here to the Coronet car, the starter system, the ignition system, and everything. So let's go ahead and slap this harness on top of the engine. Okay guys, so there we have it. So all the way back here with the EGR system, which I'm going to block off, have all the injectors plugged in, temp sensors, a couple temp sensors down there, the ignition coil wiring coming to the ignition coil right here, our alternator wiring sitting right here, the map sensors, all the throttle sensors in the throttle body, 1, 2, and 3, they're plugged in, the injectors on this side are plugged in, our ground cable down to the block. These are for the transmission side of things, so this will have overdrive, lockup, temp, like stuff like that. So that'll all be run up and we'll do some splice and get all that stuff figured out. Then here's our engine plug that'll go to the start system and lots of the ignition system. So we're gonna delete that plug and just run it straight into the car. We have auto shutdown relay and our fuel pump relay. So we're actually gonna hook our fuel pump directly into the PCM and the PCM will run our fuel pump, which will be really nice. Now I can route these wires, kind of tape this harness up, get it all looking nice, and maybe put some lume on it. You can see here, I've just put little bits and pieces of tape just to hold the wires in position before I tape them up separately. So here's the main hunk of the harness we got figured out. It's all tied up nice, all the little leads are coming out, map sensor and everything, our crank sensor pickup, we have our distributor, all that stuff. The transmission wires are hanging down there where they're gonna be loomed. And yeah, the engine side of it. So it's all looking super good. So now that this is like this, laid out the way I want it, we're gonna pull it out, put it back on my workbench, and tape the whole thing up. So I stole the old EverStart out of the Fargo. I've chopped the end off the factory Coronet positive terminal because it is completely rotten. I have this battery cable I made for this car. I have it on the negative. I have it run over onto the wiper motor just to ground the chassis. So with this setup, I'm just trying to get some power into the interior. I have a new ignition tumbler for it with new keys, so I want to see if I can get some ignition power, find some wires to hook all this Magnum wiring into this factory harness. Like I said, I'm going to run all the factory car body chassis harness out of the Coronet for all the lights and everything, but I'd like to mix in the ignition and the start and the charge system all into this car with a sensor. So let's see if we have any juice. No way! How sick is that? We got a dome light. Okay, so this stuff's pretty hard to show on video, but I'll try to do my best here. This is the firewall plug off the pickup truck the engine and transmission came from, and so that would be the same as this. This one is the Coronet's firewall plug. So same deal. I've cut all the wires off this. There's a bunch of wires in this we didn't need anymore because I'm going to be using the Coronet one. So these taped ones are some of the wires that I'll be running that came off of the firewall plug. So we're gonna just tap those into this circuit. And here's the fusible links. We're putting a fuse panel in, getting rid of the links. Here's the positive battery cable from the truck. And these are the wires that would be positive from the car. So I'm going to graph this together. I'm going to keep the full car starter system because it's already wired. This starting system has a relay right here for the starter, and that would be located right here on this B-body MOPAR. Okay guys, here's the old intake manifold. I just wanted to show you, this is the back of the manifold. This is actually where the EGR valve sits, and this is the EGR tube that goes to the exhaust manifold. Now, on my build here, I'm going to be deleting this, so I've rigged up some plates. And here's all the EGR stuff I pulled off the engine. There's like an evap canister, a bunch of just crazy vacuum lines and whatnot. I've built these block off plates. I got this nice aluminum one I cut out and drilled, and I actually still have the EGR gasket, a new one, so I'm going to just go ahead and use that. Got the 2 bolts. Here's the pipe that is on the back. I just TIG welded a bolt in there. And then for the exhaust manifold, I have the actual flange. I cut the pipe off, also welded a bolt in there, as you can see. I have a Cummins turbo drain gasket because I can't seem to find a gasket for this actual, but this should work fine. I'm going to just die grind those holes out a little bit. Here's the old fuel sending unit out of the Coronet. This is my new upgraded one I picked up. It is a 3/8 speed instead of a 5/16 speed, and it has a return line port, except for one problem. My return line port with the Magnum engine is 5/16, which is this size, and this is 1/4 inch. So I'm going to cut this one out, cut a piece of this 5/16 tube and clean it up and weld it back in here. Also, we're going to, this is the factory pickup. You can see there's a sock in there. I've ripped the sock off this one. I'm going to mount my electric fuel pump with rubber hose on the end of this, just like that. And we're going to put the sock on the end of the fuel pump, run some wires, drill a hole in here, and boom, there is our fuel pickup system. And then all we have to do is run hose from here all the way up to the engine. Check this baby out. I'm super happy with how it turned out. We have the wires poked through the top. We have the return line largened. We got the 3/8 pickup, the sending unit. Everything is tied together nicely with zip ties. Rooted, our pickup goes up and down, and yeah, we got the rubber connection for the fuel pump, and I even put a fuel pump screen on there in case we get any action in the tank. Now the old tank we pulled out, it is dirty. I took it in, I steamed it, and without going through a bunch of work to get the rust flakes out of there, it's just not worth it. So I did pick up a new tank for the couple $100 it was, because I don't want this fuel injection system having anything to do with debris. So we're going to start totally fresh on the fuel system. So this, I'm going to slap this in the new tank right now and see how it fits. Let's have a boo inside there quick. You guys, that literally slid right in there, and I put the new O-ring and lock ring in, and look at that. Like, so I painted the straps. I have the top of the tank I put a coat of paint on, and I also cleaned up the trunk floor under here and gave it a quick coat of paint just so everything stays moisture free. You can see we have the new J-hooks hanging down there ready for the tank straps. So we're gonna go ahead and push the tank up in here, get the straps locked into place. Well, back in the garage here, what are we doing? We got wire, I got some crimps, I got fuses, I got more wire. I have the ECM positioned over here. I want to kind of place there. The wires run at the back of the engine. I have routed a couple wires through here. I've extended the wires we need, the power for PCM, a couple grounds, fuel pump lead, and an ignition feed. So I have done quite a bit of wiring. We replaced the old school start relay with this new school 5-pin relay. So that's all been happening. Got the fuel tank set up in there. I need to run fuel line front to back. I'm gonna use high pressure fuel injection hose. And also, on another note, the exhaust. Here is the truck exhaust. This is the way it came off the D100 or 150 pickup truck. So we have these manifold flanges here. You just put bolts in. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut these off, get them bolted onto the car, and then we're gonna cut out this O2 bung because we're gonna need to re-weld that in. I got the red Lamborghini Rocket out back here, and I picked up, this is off the SRT caliber, this is off of first gen Cummins. So we're gonna use some of the exhaust pieces off this thing, and let's just dive right into it. We should probably also clean this garage up because it is a disaster, but we will have time for that when the time comes. right, guys, now that piece is tacked in, let's get that straight piece cut, get it through the cross member, tack it up, pull it out, weld it all up. While it's in there, let's mark that O2 sensor so we can weld that in while we're at it. Look at that. A couple pieces tacked together out of our old used exhaust systems, and we've come up with this contraption. It looks amazing, honestly. It's going to be easy to weld up. All the joints are nice together. Remember to keep your garage just a total disaster, so when you crawl around on the floor, it just feels really nice on the back, kind of like a free massage. Dal, what's up, man?
What's up, bud?
Guys, what's going on in here? Check it out. Our downpipes are done like dinner. I'm gonna get these suckers bolted on, get that O2 sensor bolted in, wired up. Then I'm gonna start working on the battery tray. Because the power steering pump on the Magnum motor hangs off this engine so dirty, as it does just brush that pulley, but that's no big deal. And then honestly, guys, we gotta put the fuse block in, do a little bit more wiring, and man, this thing's probably good to start. We're gonna wire the fuel pump. Wow, you know, I do have to put fuel lines on, so we're gonna have to pick up some fuel lines somewhere. If it's in the budget. One thing this car never had is a battery tray, so I took this one out of a 92 Dodge diesel pickup truck. It's pretty large because they have quite large batteries for those diesels. But I have the good old Everstart here, so we're going to do some modifications. We're going to cut this in half and suck it together. So I've got the tray cut down. I've sectioned it a little bit. So this is 6 inches, the size of the battery and all the room we have here. I've taken a piece of 1-inch square tube, cut the tops off, drilled the holes in the bottom to bolt it into the factory bolt hole location. There we go. It doesn't look like much, but this is reinforced underneath with 1-inch square tubing. I've started welding it up. I also modified this cornet bracket that used to sit here. Okay, this is getting out of control close. We got the PCM nearly mounted. The wiring is really getting there. I haven't filmed much of it, but it's kind of boring, but I'll give you a rundown what we got so far. I put in an ignition relay to run the ignition circuits with the ECM and the engine. I got a ground port here that goes to the ground on the battery, which is grounded to the engine and the alternator. I have the brand new starter wire and alternator feed wire with a maxi fuse. We built this battery tray like you've seen. I put a 6 fuse panel underneath here. Now all the wiring is just laid out like this. It'll all be taped and loomed once this thing is fired up. The fuel tank's in, the fuel pump's in. I wired the fuel pump. We stripped the interior out. As you can see, I have a fuse back here, an inline fuse, just in case something happens to the hot wire to the fuel pump while it's running, right there. Loomed it. We're going to run it along the channel with the taillight wiring inside the vehicle. I have this channel open. There's all the wiring. Here's the fuel pump and the loom. We got to set all that back in, but the key turns on and runs the fuel pump. The ECM triggers all the solenoid and sensors on the engine. You can hear them click on and off. So we are getting close to fire up. I still have a few things to do, like put oil in and a couple more little wiring things. Run fuel line, run transmission cooler lines. I put the transmission ports on, and we have the cooler sitting here ready to be mounted. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. our pick your part cooler we got off the truck we took the intake off of. We just bolted up to factory bolt holes with these brackets here, so that is super awesome. And I actually just went and picked up fuel line, so that is nice. Got high pressure injection fuel line for the feed, and then we just got regular 5/16 fuel line for the return, so we're going to tie them together and get that put in. Okay guys, stealing the battery. We're gonna fire this thing up. Okay guys, I got fluids in it. I got the exhaust hooked up. I ran the new fuel lines. This thing is ready to fire, so let's check a couple more wires and crank this thing over. So we had some issues with the neutral safety circuit and got that all figured out. Also had a couple of issues with the ignition key on power for the ECM, but got that figured out. So everything's kind of just jumped right now, but we're gonna go ahead and give this thing a crank over and see if we can get it started. Beyond excited. The car runs amazing. I still don't have that much tranny fluid in it, and lots of stuff still not hooked up. We don't have a rad or anything, no belt on it, no power steering, but I am going to tackle a get driving list and nail all those items. We are going to take this thing for a rip next video. Stay tuned. It's going to be awesome. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. Because we got lots more to come.